Hey guys, I really wanted to make this video. Might be a two-part video, I'm not sure. But I'm going to explain, we're going to talk about today what exactly Revelation 22:2 meant. And how the Tree of Life relates to, well, the Tree of Life. So let's start off at Revelation 22:2. And he showed me, or in the middle of its street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Now, I want to see a different translation of that, because the newest King James Version, they kind of, they shorten things down. So, okay. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. So, it had 12 manner of fruits, meaning 12 uses of fruits. So, what you'd want to look for is a tree, or something that grows as a tree, which bears 12 uses of fruit. And the only thing I know closest to that is cannabis. Cannabis, in the old biblical times, was used in 12 ways. I don't tell you what they were. Yes. Cannabis was used 12 ways. Clothing, paper, cords, sail, fishnet, oil, sealant, incense, food, ceremony, relaxation, and medicine. That is how many ways cannabis was used. Also, it says right here, Isaiah 18:4-5. I will take my rest, and I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs. For a fore-harvest, when the bud is perfect and the sour grape is ripening in the flower, he shall cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks and take away and cut down the branches. Okay, I guess that, I'll take my rest. Okay, alright, so it was used 12 ways, so there's one, but here's the thing. Cannabis is also a tree. If you actually look up on cannabis on Google, you look up cannabis tree on Google, it will show you that cannabis is a tree that actually grows. It grows very, very tall. It's the leaves, which is the fruit, and also, well, here's the thing. When God says leaves, the leaves were for the healing of the nations. Here's the cool thing about this tree, or about cannabis. Sorry. Here's the thing about cannabis is that the 12 uses for cannabis is used not only in the fruit, which is the bud of the cannabis, the herb part, but also the leaves can be also used resourcefully. I don't know about the stems. I think they can. I'm pretty sure they would be able to use for something, But I think it's just all of the all the leaves. So when God refers to leaves, He refers to the bud, because that's leaves actually crumpled up together, like that's what forms the herb, and then the rest of the leaves that don't have THC on them, but are just plain, pretty much hemp leaves, those remaining leaves. So those will be used for the healing of nations. You can make, these days you can make, you can use it for fuel, use it for oil and medicine. It's healed many people of cancer tumors, like it shrinks cancer tumors and stuff, and it doesn't cause lung cancer, it doesn't cause bronchitis. And I stated that in another video. Actually, I looked up Genesis 1:29. And some of you may be thinking, oh, it would be preposterous for cannabis to be the tree of life. That'd be preposterous. But the thing is that the cool thing is that cannabis is not only a plant. It's It's a plant, it's an herb, it's a flower, it's a bush, and it's a tree. And that's what's so cool, is that it bears fruit, it bears herb, but it can also be a tree, which is crazy. So, so just Genesis 1:29, God says, and God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed which is on all the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. For you it shall be for food. So, you see, when somebody says, you see, God says He gives us every herb that yields seed which is on all the face of the earth. Haha. That doesn't justify that you can have cannabis and that cannabis is from God. Oh, but get this. If cannabis is a tree, which it is, that grows wild from a seed, can't be pressed, like all those lab substances and drugs like methamphetamines and stuff. Okay? And the only reason I would know a lot about this is because I took, I was on methamphetamines. I had ADHD, so, well, I have ADHD, but I was on methamphetamines from the age of 6 to 13, and it messed with me. It made me hallucinate. It gave me blue eyes and blue lines under my eyes because I didn't get sleep before, like the night before. But anyway, back on the subject. So that means that if cannabis is a tree and that it bears fruit, which it does, that means that we can eat of that fruit. So we can not only eat of every herb, which cannabis is an herb, but we can also eat of every tree which bears fruit, which cannabis is also a tree which bears fruit. So that's how you would know that that it can be the tree of life, because it is in fact a tree, and it is both an herb, it's a plant, it's a tree, it's a bush, it's a flower, it's all that cool stuff. So, now that you've read Genesis 1:29, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on all the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. That means to you shall be for food. You know, God wouldn't put He wouldn't put harmful chemicals in our food. He wouldn't put anything harmful in our food. You know, it's natural. There's a reason for the word natural, and it doesn't mean just because it's natural won't kill you, because I mean, I'm not talking about the kind of natural that grows from the ground. I'm talking about the kind of natural that God told us that we could, that this is natural as in it's good. You may eat it. It is good. Then God said, or what is it? I've given a green herb, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, oh yeah, then God saw everything that He had made, and indeed it was very good. So, good, natural. I don't mean natural as in grown from the ground, because of course poison ivy is grown from the ground. You don't want to be smoking poison ivy, because God didn't tell us to smoke poison ivy or eat poison ivy or anything, you know. So don't do that. Anyway, okay, so let's just think about the tree of life. Think about that for a second. The tree of life. So the only tree that I know of, in fact the only plant that I know of that grows from the ground that has two sexes, a male and a female sex, is the cannabis plant. You can mix strains. I mean, it's incredible. You can mix any strain you want and just make a crazy one or something, or make one that's never even been made on, like, ever before. And, you see most, I mean, it even talks about it in the Bible. It talks about, it says that they will keep us refraining, or, like, they will, here. Let me just look up this verse real quick. Abstaining from meat. Okay, now the Spirit expressly says that in latter times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons, through the insincerity of liars, whose consciences are seared who forbid marriage and require abstinences from foods that God created to be received with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth. For everything created by God is good, and nothing is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is made holy by the word of God and prayer. So, everything is good, and nothing is to be rejected if received with thanksgiving. So, since we know that he's talking about foods and require abstinence from foods that God created to be received with thanksgiving, so we know that he's talking about food. So when God refers to food, he refers to what? He refers to what he gave us as food, which was fruit from the trees and every herb yielding seed, which is on all the face of the earth. Okay? So that means that cannabis is an herb. It is a herb yielding seed. It does yield herb, and you can eat these herbs. And they're not toxic, they're not bad for you, they're not harmful. Dude, come on now. That propaganda, if you've ever heard of the film Reefer Madness, if you've never heard of it, look it up. It's called Reefer Madness, and it was made a long time ago. And I'm pretty sure it was to like hype up the whole prohibition of marijuana, because the reason they call it Reefer Madness is because the so-called government believed that if you smoked weed, you'd become evil and you'd murder people and drive crazy and you just go insane pretty much and die pretty much. If you can overdose on it and go crazy and kill other people, and they pretty much think you go insane because you're laughing and stuff, and they think just because that person's acting a little different, a little foolish. And foolishness isn't necessarily something that you have to look as bad. When someone's happy, they act foolish. That's just natural. It's not foolish as in you don't need to insult someone. That's not what I mean by foolish. I mean foolish as in fall over. That's something natural. Learning to walk, you fall over. That's natural. It's not bad. So, anyway, foolishness is natural. People do foolish things, and it's not foolish as in like, oh, I'm so, ashamed, of what I did. It's like, you just relax and stuff, just having fun, just a little goofy, I guess, and God, where would we be without goofiness? Like, honestly, we wouldn't have any laughter without goofiness. There's a lot of people out there that are funny, that are goofy. I was goofy in elementary school, and people thought I was pretty funny. Okay? Some people bullied me, that's alright. I forgive them, but, But here's the thing, the reason that I wanted to point out something is that, notice how God says, through the insincerity of liars, whose consciences are seared. Okay? Seared. Consciences are seared. Now, Bob Marley, all those people that like to smoke weed in the world, even hippies, especially hippies, they love to claim that, which I do believe also, that stimulating your mind, which is, comes from smoking marijuana, you get to meditate. And you get to, that's the whole thing about it. You act foolish for a while, and then you sit down and you get to meditate. And you get to think. You stimulate your mind, and you get to think about who you are and what kind of, you won't worry about all the problems in your life. You'll just think about the people around you, and you'll have a higher consciousness. And the higher the consciousness, the more you can hear the Holy Spirit, and the more you can hear God. And, that's why God says in the Bible to meditate. God says literally to lay in your bed and meditate. And so that's why that's where meditating comes in. It's such a, it's okay to meditate, It's not a bad thing as long as you're meditating to God. So, another thing that I want to share, one last thing about this, is that, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, so, this guy posted this article post. And the article post is called "Marijuana Possible Gift to Higher Consciousness." Through balance with time and interest, marijuana can enliven the center of knowing. In the theory of vibration, this is the sixth level of development known as the knowledge center, what we refer to as the sixth sense, or intuition, derives from this esoteric symbol, which very often is depicted as a third eye located at the mid-brow. I don't know anything about a third eye. I know that this benefits to God in a way because it just gives you a higher consciousness. It's a performance enhancer. I mean, think about it. Everything, the words are more thicker and they're bold. Everything's more bolder. Everything looks, bold, and things taste better. And I've even heard people say that sex is better, which I don't have any interest. I don't, freaking have any interest in. Anyway, this adding to the point that he believes the modern world is confused and teach confusion in the education system. Bob Marley believes this because he says, quotes, "I'm not educated. I'd be a damn fool if I was educated. The more people smoke herb, the more Babylon falls." And then this explains why. Taking once again on the confused world and how the herb brings you back to reality. So a higher consciousness level will bring you out of like this kind of straight line that you're on pretty much. You're not worrying about the spiritual side. You're not worrying about, what God thinks of you at all. You're not worried about what people think of you. And then when you smoke the herb, it takes you back into reality and has you think about all those important things that you need to think about in life to care about others. And that's why hippies, when they smoke so much weed, they start holding up signs about peace and love and end of war. It's because that's all they could focus on. It just brings them back to reality. It makes them focus on the real side, the real someone. When you smoke, you no longer want to work for the man. You want to be one of the man. You want to be one of them. You want to be like God, pretty much. That's what you want to be like. You want to be like God. And that's not bad. It's not bad. Everybody needs to practice an everyday living a godly life, just like God, So this theory is backed up extremely well by another quote by the man himself, which is, "Herb is the healing of a nation, alcohol is the destruction." So, if you don't understand what that quote means, I'm going to explain it to you. Herb. Okay? What does it say? I lost my place here. I lost my place. Oh. Herb is the healing of a nation, alcohol is the destruction. So the reason that alcohol is the destruction is because when you get drunk, alcohol isn't necessarily the destruction. I would change that to drunkenness is the destruction of a nation. Because alcohol, too much of it, which is very common, especially in those really, high populated cities, clubs, all that stuff. Anyway, drinking and getting drunk is very common, and it destroys your brain cells and makes you stupid. You get drunk, you don't focus, you can't meditate, you start thinking about, bad things, you start driving, you can't even tripping over yourself, you're puking everywhere. I've slept in my puke before, okay? I know the difference between having weed and then laying down, and then drinking and then laying down, and I gotta tell you, the first one's much more meditative and comfortable. Now a lot with mimic me on this thread, as they did in the last one before, but I do not mind, as I believe the herb does lift me up to a higher level of consciousness, as it did so to Bob Marley, which I think is rather ironic. So as I had wrote down a lot of theories in my first few months under the influence, then when I read about Bob, it seems a lot of our theories and the lady who's linked to her website above seem to match another great quote by the man himself, is, the power of philosophy floats through my head like a feather heavy as lead. Bob talking on his feelings after inhaling. Here's another extract from the website link posted up the page. People who try marijuana and reject it usually do so because they feel uncomfortable and confused in an altered fuller consciousness. The reason it's easy for, you to take it off weed and be like, oh my gosh, I never want to smoke weed ever again, is because, the only reason people get anxiety and feel uncomfortable is because everything you do, everything new is scary. Everything new is scary. Even water slides, skateboarding, whatever. It's scary, so if you try it, of course you're gonna get scared. You don't know, So it's a fuller consciousness, and guess what? I'm gonna also explain why some people get anxiety from smoking marijuana. So if God says to he who overcomes, I will let him eat or partake of the tree of life in the paradise of God. And that's, let's see, what verse is that? Eat of the tree. Okay, so that is Revelation 2:7. And so, the reason it says, to him that overcomes, he who overcomes the world, I will let him eat of this tree of life. Because, here's the thing. The tree of life, you're only supposed to partake of it if you're righteous. And that is why, okay, think about this. God told Moses, and remember, moderation's key, so if Moses were to eat one shroom, he would have much, much, much less chance of dying if you were to take, 10 shrooms, maybe even 12, I don't know. I don't know anything about shrooms, but I know that you can die from eating too many shrooms. You can definitely overdose on shrooms. So, but moderation's key, and God told Moses to eat the shroom, and he did. And the only reason that God allowed him to eat the shroom, and you think that, it goes to the point where some people bring it up, why would God tell Moses to eat a shroom? That's kind of weird, like, God doesn't want us doing altered drugs, right? Well, here's the thing, that's where it comes in, where Moses was the only one worthy. He was probably the only one worthy to actually eat a shroom, because a shroom gives you a far more higher conscious level than marijuana. I'm not saying go around eating shrooms. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Very bad idea. But he was the only one worthy to partake of the shroom, because if it gives you a higher conscious level, think about it, your thoughts are magnified. So if you have sin on your mind, your sin's going to be magnified. It's going to make you sin that much more, okay? If you eat of shrooms. I don't know about marijuana, because even people that sin, they smoke marijuana and then they start to promote peace, love, and all that great stuff, even when they're sinning. So, back to the shrooms. But Moses, you see, he surrounded his mind with positive things. He meditated on God's word, like he meditated on what God had told him, and he meditated on just being just like God, and he knew that he was just inspired by God. He was filled with God because he was inspired, and that's how he made it, because he was inspired, that wanting to change, and that's why he was the only one worthy. It was because God had given him that as a disciple, that wanting to change and wanting to live righteous and to overcome the world and become worthy of God and his, to partake of the tree of life, or, whatever. But, anyway, so, that's why most people trip, is because when they are to do anything that would, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter whether it's meth, cocaine, cannabis, which cannabis isn't really a drug. It's more of just a higher conscious drug. All it does is increase dopamine. You got to realize that's all it does. It doesn't intoxicate you. It doesn't alter your mind. The only way it alters your mind is that it increases dopamine, and anything that increases dopamine, like, it pretty much stimulates your mind. So your mind stimulates brain cell growth, and just stimulates your thoughts and helps you to think, things that are more in depth. Anyway, so thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and just I hope this helped you guys. I hope this helped, and just, if you didn't get it, oh well, message me and ask me any questions if you have any. Alright, thanks for watching, have a nice day.